Welcome to Turning Point USA America Fest 2024. It is the Unusual Suspects. My name is Rob Gargiulo. I am joined by some of my usual unusual suspects. We have Humberto.
Humberto.
We have Amy.
Amy.
Brandon.
Hi.
And we have a very special guest for you guys today. Political operative, constitutional attorney, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel with a background in Special Forces. Not only that, he is the Secretary of Retribution and the Deep State Marauder. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show today. And I'm very excited to have him, Ivan Raiklin. Ivan, thank you so much.
My
kind of guy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love you guys are red pilling the country through unusual suspects. Wait, I'm the unusual suspect.
Well, right now
And
you
guess
are.
what?
in.
And listen, you have been talking about something that has existed within our government, that a shadow government that works behind the scenes and controls the special interests of the American public day in and day out. You've been talking about this for how many years now? The deep state.
Oh, I would say that. Let me just bring it back. Remember the pardon that was just given to the crack baby son for 10 years back in 2014?
Yeah.
Let's just start with the
Just
10-year
really-
time frame. I had a front or second row seat to the entire apparatus as an insider. Check this out. 2014, I was sitting in the Ukraine crisis team as a senior analyst
wow.
in the Pentagon's National Military Command Center as I observed failed Vice President Biden going over to Ukraine. And then before that, I think it was 2 weeks before that, it was the CIA director, John Brennan, that went over there to kind of pay off the coup that just took place in Ukraine.
The NGO,
And then
right?
guess what? Then they being Biden, went ahead and said, hey, Petro Poroshenko, now that we've installed you, why don't you go ahead and I have some great ideas for you in improving your economy, particularly in unconventional ways. And those unconventional ways included my son has quite an olfactory capability in sniffing out oil and gas fields. The right nostril can specifically help out Burisma find oil fields, and the left one can find you natural gas fields. So you can go ahead and pay him $83,333.33 0.3 repeating a month to the tune of $1 million a year so that he can spend it on hookers and blow.
So he could use that nose to snort other things.
And so I say that, it's not funny, but I'm saying that because in 2014, I was at the Defense Intelligence Agency, right? Who was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency at the time?
General Michael Flynn.
I've heard of that name. That's excellent. And so guess what happens? So while General Flynn is saying, you know what? ISIS ain't no JV team. They're actually a threat. And what else? Yeah, that Iran deal, that's not a good idea. So then what does Barry Hussein do? He calls over to his DNI, Jimmy Clapper, and Jimmy Clapper calls over to General Michael T. Flynn. We're going to resign you, meaning you need to submit your resignation because you're speaking truth to power. And that's unacceptable, particularly when you're testifying before Congress, while the rest of them, Brennan, Comey, Clapper, etc., are saying, no, it's not. It's actually a JV team. They're towing the party line, the party lie. You saw how I did that
Mistake.
to the country. And General Flynn was like, if you watch this movie, Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. He looks at it. He's like, no, I'm not going to change my assessment. My assessment stands. And for that, they resigned him. While I was in the DIA, I saw and observed those two things, the Ukraine piece and what they did to General Flynn. To me, that was something is not right. And it was off. And I started digging. As we move forward into the Trump campaign for the first go, 2015-16, what they ended up doing to General Flynn, and he got resigned again, I'm thinking, something's off. I'm going to dig. So then what part of a former instructor of intelligence at the intelligence community, former Green Beret, former military diplomat, and constitutional lawyer did they miss? Because they didn't plan for folks like me, and then later I'll explain 80,000 of my closest friends. We are now on a mission. I got to be careful what language I use here. Right? To identify our domestic enemies, create the necessary surgical target list, I use my words carefully, to then action those targets in the most legal, moral, and ethical manner so that they collectively face maximum consequences. Some betas out there are going to use the term accountability. The definition of retribution is the maximum just and lawful punishment for illegal behavior. Those on my deep state target list are primarily those that committed treason to our constitutional order. And while everybody was bending the knee, while everybody was still staying on CommiTube because they wanted to continue to create their revenue stream, the very individuals at the FBI that we can go into, I can name you all their names and what they did. While Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi did a great job, Mike Benz is a fantastic researcher and can convey the international global order, and he does name quite a few names. This deep state target list amasses all the work that all the individuals that I just explained, as well as my own network research and expertise of 25 years in the system across the entire intel community, special ops community. I can name you 1,400 individuals that were involved in the entire deep state constitutional destruction in the last 10 years by name, date, place, transgression, category, relationships, and what must ensue starting January 3rd with the next Congress, and on January 20th at about 1 p.m. as we start to conduct the precedent at scale of what they did to us, but lawfully. And the precedent that I'm talking about is Fulton Fanny. We got 2,500 districts attorneys throughout the country that will on January 20th have the courage to do what is necessary, meaning deputize me and my closest friends along with the county sheriffs to conduct the live stream swatting legal raids to bring these people in. And in some instances, you may see objectively reasonable conduct, as was done to Ashley Babbitt by Captain now Michael Byrd of the U.S. Capitol Police, or what was done by Metropolitan Police Department Officer Lila Morris to Roseanne Boylan. Are you familiar with those two names?
I'm familiar with the first, not the latter.
Roseanne Boylan was beaten to death with a baton by Metropolitan Police Department Officer Lila Morris. Later, she and other officers, Michael Fanone and another MPD officer, those three were then sent in February of 2021 to be special VIP guests at the NFL Super Bowl. Why? Because the two of them committed, one of them committed murder outside of the Capitol grounds, which they said was objectively reasonable. Well, guess what? We can do quite a few objectively reasonable consequences to the tune of 1,400 as well.
Well, and before we continue,
legally, morally, and ethically.
And wonderful that you said one of those words I have to say here just because of the claims that you made. And I'm not saying that they're incorrect or disinformation in any capacity, but to protect the company that we work for, legally, I have to say that the opinions that you just expressed are those of your own, Ivan Raiklin, and not Valuetainment or Unusual Suspects or anyone here. But I do want to continue.
And that's why many podcasters will not have me on, because my rhetoric is uncomfortable.
I don't mind the uncomfortability. I want truth. And
absolutely.
And we talked about this with Ian Carroll. When you say the word retribution, I feel like, and you say betas, and I agree. Betas will hear that word and go, oh, we're going to have 1940s Nazi Germany in the United States hunting down our political opponents. What we're talking about is justice. Justice for the American people who have been deceived to and lied to by the politicians that their tax dollars pay. We pay these people. You, with your salary, I'm assuming that you get some type of pension and benefits from the military. Part of that goes back to paying for the people that are lying to us on an everyday basis, and that's what drives me nuts. You mentioned justice and retribution, and your shirt, which you can find at Raiklin.com, RAIKLIN.com. Can you stand up and can we get a wide shot of this shirt? Because it's important to see. It has a list of names of the Retribution tour, and I really want to get to these names. Look at this. This is available. Raiklin.com, RAIKLIN.com. Great zoom in, beautiful. Kelly. Look at, what does that say? Can you turn to me real quick so I can read off? Oh, no, I don't want to read the names, but the General Flynn unmasking, Crossfire Hurricane Team, the Biden laptop cover-up, the COVID-19 pandemic, January 6, 2020 election, and the impeachment hoaxes 1 and 2. There are names of everybody that's been associated with that, and he wants retribution for them coming January 3rd and 20th. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. When people hear deep state and they say Donald Trump wanted to drain the swamp, it seemed like it was an insurmountable thing to do because we never really identified how many people there are. But you just listed That's 1,400 people. That's not hundreds of thousands of government employees that we need to get rid of.
Correct.
It's 1,400 people that we need to remove from office. If
That's for phase 1, though. Yeah.
okay, phase one. Are you
Don't get me
concerned?
wrong here.
Currently, we have President Biden is still in office despite the weird.
I don't
know if you
acknowledge that he's the legitimate president.
And
It's
many-
pronounced resident, but go ahead.
Okay, Resident-in-Chief Joe Biden is still in office for another 30 days. We've seen the preemptive pardons. One of the concerns, and you have it on
The
there.
preemptive pardons are going to be probably going to every single person here.
Well, yeah, and that's what
But
I wanted
here's
to
the
ask
beauty
you.
of what could happen.
There
if
were two
was-
names on there, Liz Cheney and Dr. Fauci, two of which I do not want to see pardoned. Your input on what would happen, do you believe that preemptive pardons are going to happen to those two individuals? And if so, A, what is the reaction to a Dr. Fauci getting pardoned? And B, is there anything that he can be held accountable for outside of the pardon that Joe Biden may or may not give him?
So not only do I identify the problem or the threat, but I also come up with solutions that are the most unconventional, aggressive, that require political courage that betas don't have, to include Speaker Mike Johnson. So Elon Musk, if you're listening in, you're the only person in America with the necessary leverage and voice to do the following. Rand Paul already said it. He echoed my sentiment that I put out probably a few months ago regarding this, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson said yesterday at his press conference that, guess what? This job is hard. Elon, what, you want to be Speaker of the House? Absolutely. So when Elon Musk comes in, say, I don't know, tomorrow, and becomes the Speaker of the House, he can go ahead and then impeach this entire Biden criminal syndicate, okay? Literally within hours. And then hand it over to the Senate. He may have the necessary leverage to essentially ruin, if they don't vote to convict the Biden criminal syndicate, to include Democrats, right? Because he has the financial means to do it and the voice to do so. And he's got dirt on every single one of those members of Congress. How? He has the direct messages of all the Twitter accounts of all staff, as well as all members of Congress, that he probably has blackmail on every single one of them to force the conviction of the Biden criminal syndicate. What does that do? He's no longer there, as well as Kamala Harris, to go ahead and conduct pardons.
The preemptive pardoning,
Right?
which we've never heard of in the
Is that a
history.
constitutional solution? Absolutely. It requires courage. It requires synonyms.
Balls.
Thank you.
The
Right?
cojones.
En español, por favor.
That's what it is.
So, bottom line is we're in unprecedented, uncharted times in our country that require courage. It starts with rhetoric. That rhetoric changes into cultural psyche. Then that turns into planning. And then that turns into educating the plan and then executing on the plan. I can't do much other than when the more people that allow me to have a platform that hear a particular plan that's pretty novel and interesting, then we can get to the point to actually getting it to the right players, such as Elon, President Trump, et cetera, to then say, you know what, this is pretty good. Let's do it. I don't have the leverage. I just have the thought process because I know the system better than most people that are in and around the Trump. And I know that doesn't sound too humble, but as I like to say, I am the most humble human in the history of humanity.
The last time that we had you on, because I know we have to wrap up, our time is limited. We have 2 minutes. The last time that we spoke to you on The Unusual Suspects, it was about 4 months ago. This is before the November election and win and sweep by Donald Trump of all of the swing states and won the popular vote. How confident are you now, as opposed to how you were 4 months ago, as to justice coming for the wrongdoings that have been done to the American public? How has your perception changed between the last time we spoke to you 4 months ago and now we have President-elect Donald Trump, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, we have Elon Musk, we have Vivek, we have RFK, we have Tulsi, all going into the White House. How different is your outlook on the future of America as opposed to 4 months ago, the last time we spoke?
If we can stop them from stealing the election, which they still can, because yesterday was the day when the Executive Order 13848 was supposed to be published about foreign interference in the 2024 election, which they can still publish late by the intel community and say that Russia interfered in the election, and that can be used by Kamala Harris on Wednesday to send electors back to the states, in specifically 4 states that have governors that are Democrat: North Carolina, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. If those governors send an alternate slate of electors going into January 6th, this new Congress that's only slightly Republican, if the uniparty deep state offers up some incentives to about 4 or 5 Republicans, there's a chance and a possibility that he's not certified on January 6th, and that it's possible that he's not certified on January 6th because there's going to be a fight for the speakership. So then you're going to have a vacancy in the House. You can't run a joint session. So these are the little political maneuvers, constitutional maneuvers, that I don't hear anybody else other than myself kind of saying, hey, it's quiet. I don't think, to me, I'm concerned that they're just rolling over.
It doesn't seem
we
like
need
that.
to watch these things and stop it. And by you having me on, there's going to be enough of an audience that will now get it through the system to stop that from happening. So you're literally instrumental in allowing this to take place.
Where
And
are
then
you
I'm gonna
at
say,
percentage-wise that could actually happen?
to close out with that, very low.
Okay.
High risk, but very low probability. But I need people to think through this so that if any indication of that taking place happens, we are in the position to stop it. Number 2, to answer your question finally, which is how confident am I? I would say that we get him to January 20th. He's sworn in. He walks off of the Capitol steps there, or up there on the west side, walks in with J.D. Vance and does the following: signs all of the appointees that he's already decided on and the ones that he's going to future decide on, presents it to the Senate president that just got sworn in, J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance basically takes over the rostrum in the Senate chambers and says, hey, folks, I got a few things for you to do. The first thing is you vote publicly for the whole country to see, and it's live stream on X, Rumble, as well as on C-SPAN, the Senate Majority Leader vote. We want to see how everybody stands. If that happens, I think that Ron Johnson could potentially become the Senate Majority Leader. Number 2, President of the Senate, J.D. Vance, says, we do nothing moving forward in this chambers until you confirm every single person on this list. I will stand here, sleep here for however many weeks here at the rostrum until that happens. Because guess what? The only constitutional leadership position in the Senate as espoused in the Constitution for the U.S. Senate is the President of the Senate. There's no provision for the Senate Majority Leader. So if J.D. Vance wants to flex and show constitutional courage, also known in Spanish as
Cojones. Yeah.
then guess what? We can go ahead and maximally conduct day 1 with the assistance of Tom Homan's leadership as he rounds up how many? The biggest deportation operation ever in the history of humanity. And incidentally, collaterally, we may just ensnare 1,400 individuals as part of that process.
It's a question. So will the Attorney General be on your side with that? 'Cause I assume that's the most important person in enabling you to do this. So the Pam Bondi, is she on board with this?
Kash Patel wrote a book called Government Gangsters, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how am I going to answer this. Tom Homan, I just mentioned.
Yep.
Tulsi Gabbard is the one that decides on what, as the DNI, what to declassify.
Mm-hmm.
So when she declassifies everything that needs to be declassified to prove beyond any doubt the 1,400 that I just mentioned with the IC's holdings, coupled with Elon Musk's holdings of Twitter, DMs, geotag location data, fuses that and distributes what they need to Pam Bondi at the federal level.
She'll have no choice.
A.G. Paxton in Texas, Chris Kobach in Kansas, right? And we tell Andrew Bailey in Missouri, and America says, "Hey guys, you have all the evidence. Oh, you can't criminally prosecute A.G. Paxton? Why don't you work with the DA in Bastrop County where X is located? I don't know his name, Brian Gertz or something like that. Maybe I know some of these folks." The Secretary of Retribution coordinates the national, state, and local efforts so that they conduct the precedent set by Fulton Fatty and Fat Al Bragg. We don't need the federal government to do this. And it might be even better because then President Trump's fingerprints are nowhere to be seen.
It's-
The states and the counties do
so
it.
how do you do that
have to
without
wrap up.
Okay.
But listen, Ivan,
But,
thank
again, this is superficial discussion here.
Yes,
We only
of
have
course.
15
Sorry.
minutes.
By the way, first of all, you're a retired United States Army Lieutenant Colonel. I want to thank you for your service to this country,
Thank you.
continuing
Thank
to
you.
protect the freedoms of not just myself, but my children and future generations. I appreciate you joining us on the podcast today. If you would like to follow the Secretary of Retribution, you can find everything Ivan Raiklin at Raiklin.com, RAIKLIN.com, and AmericaFuture.net. Ivan and General Flynn are working together to save the hundreds of thousands of missing children. It was just acknowledged by the Democratic mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, that over 500,000 children have gone missing in this country alone. Nobody is doing anything to try and find them and bring justice to the people that have done things to these children. The most innocent of innocent are the children, and no one is stepping up to defend them. And you guys are with americasfuture.net. So please support General Flynn. Please support Ivan Raiklin and go to Raiklin.com. Ivan, final words.
I'd like to invite you and those here. February 18th, we just announced on President's Day, that kind of week, that we're hosting an event, our next event at Mar-a-Lago, specifically focused on American exceptionalism. And that's run by America's Future. Chairman is General Flynn. And twofold, you mentioned the protecting our children from digital and physical threats. And the other side of it is we focus on restoring the constitutional order. And ideally, we'd like to see and help facilitate the removal of DEI, meaning didn't earn it, as well as conniving racism training, CRT, from all of our institutions, public and private, and replace them with Constitution training centers. And I'm going to hopefully be at the forefront of that.
An American patriot, Ivan Raiklin, everybody, Raiklin.com. Ivan, thank you so much for your service and for joining us. And to you for watching at home on The Unusual Suspects. Make sure you like and subscribe. And that'll be it for us today. We will see you again soon. Take care. God bless and bye-bye.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.